Yo.
What up? What up?
Ooh, what's going on? Yo, you can't be leaving me like this, bro. I start questioning my self-worth. I be sad.
Sorry, man. It was the vid. The vid got me. The Rona.
This could have been a much different podcast. It'd have been just me, empty chair over there with a bottle of Corona. It's like, oh man.
Yo, for real, man. Welcome back, everybody, to the Common Footprint Podcast, episode 130.
Oof.
We doing it
Let's go.
every week,
Who'da
as you
thought?
know, right? We get together, have a few drinks, talk about things going on in the world, try to focus on things making an impact, whether they be good, bad, or otherwise. Hit them with the drink of the day.
Oof, let's go, yo. Sean came through today with one of my favorites, man. A New York Sour. If you have not had a New York Sour, and if you're watching on YouTube, no, your eyes do not deceive you. That is a bottle of wine with Snoop Dogg on it, which this podcast, if you haven't been with us the whole time, we started off drinking wine.
Yes, we and
then
did.
it
That's
morphed
right,
into
man.
cocktails, man.
Yep.
So it's funny. But you see a bottle of wine and you see a little bit of a Buffalo Trace up there. So this drink does in fact have both. So New York Sour, gonna do a shot of your bourbon. So which we got the Buffalo Trace today. You're gonna do an ounce of a lemon. So we squeezed a whole lemon in there. Yep. You're gonna do a half an ounce of simple syrup.
Yep.
And you shake that up in a shaker with ice, and then obviously you're gonna pour it in a glass with ice. And then you're going to top it off with, I like to do the spoon pour, or you could do an ounce of the red wine up top. And you can't see it here, but peep our IG and our Twitter and the Facebook, and you'll see the drink, the picture on there. It'll have the separation there. You can see the red wine separating from the bourbon and the lemon.
Yeah, the drink is pretty,
cool.
man.
It is a pretty drink, man. It is. It's foofy. But it's so good, man. But these... Listen,
The next day,
and the other thing too, yeah. So don't cheap out on the wine or I know it's being mixed, but don't cheap out on the wine or the bourbon the next day. And they sneak up on you, man, because they're so delicious that like after like 3, you're like, whoa, what's going on here?
Yeah,
You're like, why am I undressing?
I think I'm on 3 right now. So if my clothes start coming off, stop me.
I'm like, Sean, the camera's rolling. We gonna have to launch our OnlyFans just cause. I'm like, all right, we're not letting the footage go to waste.
If I,
gonna monetize it
I might
somewhere.
want to stick around. I might start twerking here in a minute.
Pop that. That's gonna get wild. Oh man.
No, but it's really good. And then on the IG, you'll see the drink. Even it's one of those, like, if you serve it to somebody, like, it just looks cool because the wine, like, it sits on top until you either stir it or whatever. So that separation looks really cool.
I've done it, man, with like company over, and I'll serve them that, and they'll be like, you get the like, just make me whatever, and then
Right.
like, because I'll always generally have a bourbon, and I always have like red wine, so I've made it for people, and they're like, what's this? And then they're like, oh, it's so good, but then of course like 2 later, they're like, so, did you make me enough more? I'm like, yeah, you've had enough. So yeah, man, this is good. I love this one, man. And it's been a while. I haven't had it in. Oh, actually, no. I made it maybe within a month. I made it for something. I can't remember, like something with people together. And I made it, but it's probably the last. But before that, it had been a while since I had it. And they said this was one of my go-tos, man. Between the old fashions and these.
I think we did it one other time.
We might have done it on here before. Yeah,
we
for
did
sure.
it like one other time. Matter of fact, I didn't realize it until I tried it at home, and then when I tasted it, I was like, oh yeah, we've had this before.
I think early on.
Yeah.
Early on, probably like episode 53. I don't know. I'm just gonna throw that out. Watch it be right. Don't go back looking for that episode.
That's right.
For that drink, just go listen to it.
So yo, man, my compliment of the week is going out on behalf of my previous week.
Ooh.
As I just said, I was my whole household was stricken with COVID-19. I had the Rona, the vid, whatever you like to call it.
Vid.
But my compliment is going out to a couple of doctors from University of British Columbia in Canada, Dr. Francois Jean and Dr. Jimena Perez Vargas. These folks, they found compounds that could actually stop the coronavirus and the flu virus from infecting human cells. But what's interesting is where they actually found these compounds. They found them in sea sponges and marine bacteria.
That's so, bro. What would, bro?
Why would you go?
Why would you look there? That's what I was thinking. Like, what would compel you to look there?
And then how do you make the connection?
Yeah, I don't even know.
You know what I mean?
Is that a Whoops discovery or was it?
Dude, so they named the 3 compounds. I'm not gonna go into those here because I'm not smart enough to know exactly what those are and how they would benefit this situation. But yeah, these guys found it, and I'll tell you, man. This past week, I took a vacation from work, not because I had corona, not because I had COVID-19, but I ended up getting it, and everyone in my household got it, and it affected us all differently.
Like, oh, dude, is it still 19?
Oh, I mean, there's different variants.
Should it be 23? Like, how do we know? How do we know it's not lingering from 22? Like, what makes it?
Yeah, I don't know, man. I gotta say this though. Mine started out, so I'll just speak on behalf of myself. I woke up with chills and nausea. The nausea went away in the first day. Then a cough started.
Okay.
I had a day where both my legs hurt for some reason.
That's so random too. Like,
then that lasted like 24 hours. That goes away. And then the cough kind of lingered for like a few days. But I only felt, and I wouldn't even say I felt bad, but I felt like I only want to lay on the couch and not do anything for about 2 days. By day 3, I was like, I realized that I felt better when I was outside. So I began to do like outside things. Okay. I went bike riding. You think it
was just being up? Do you think it was just the whole sun thing? Do you think it was?
I don't know, man. I don't. It could have been all of the above.
Placebo of I'm just gonna go outside.
Right.
And
it could have been all of the above, man. I don't know. I just know that for me, like being outside was better for me. I know my wife would probably tell you very different. She felt better being inside.
Yeah.
But it has lasted her like the longest. Like the effects of it, like are sort of still lingering for her, whereas mine are pretty much gone.
Do you think that's because? I see. It's interesting, right? Because you guys are on the same household, so you would go like the factors that would change would be like your like you figure diet wise, you guys are all eating the same, but you obviously have like a strict sort of workout regimen, and then supplement wise, and like, do you think that played a factor in your recovery over hers, or do you think it was just like it's just genetics, or you think it's just every person is different? Or
well, you know what, like my I have 2 sons. I have 3 sons actually, but one of them didn't get it at all. Nothing. Been in the house. Been in the house with us all week. Didn't get it. The other 2 got it. Had similar symptoms to me, but do not have similar workout regimens as I have. Right, but they pretty much like me, like pretty much the same symptoms, and then got over it in the same time span. And my wife is different.
Yeah, but she never know with this thing, which I think is what the fear was in the first place, right?
She also has pre-existing like respiratory condition.
Okay.
So I think it affected her worse than everybody else.
And I think that's what the like looking back, it's funny that we're talking about COVID now in January of 23,
right?
Just wow, like 3 years.
Yeah,
3 years, man. So it's like
that's right. It was 3 years, like in March when the shit shut down.
Yeah, when everything shut down was March 2020. So we were 3 years from that. But it was like 2019 when it was like we were hearing like rumblings in China and Italy, and you're just like, it's never gonna hit here, kind of thing. Like, but. It's interesting because like as time has passed, like remember how like the fear initially like that everyone had, and I think like looking back on it now, like we're obviously like, like before, if you'd have tell me like, yo, I got COVID, I'd be like, shit, Sean, like you told me I was kind of like, I was kind of like, all right, so we not doing the pod.
You ain't coming over.
Like I probably would have still done it, to be honest with you. Like it's just it's one of those things now where I think because we feel more comfortable. I think initially it was like exactly what you were saying. You just didn't know how it was going to impact people. And obviously a lot of people died. But like the thing is that it was so inconsistent in how it affected people that you just didn't know. And so, but I think now if you don't know someone who's been affected by this in some way, shape, or form, and I think that's almost what it took for us to sort of get normalized and not buy into like the hysteria that like the news sold us to in the beginning. Like now you're like, bro, I know 100 people that have had COVID, none of them died. You know, like now it just becomes one of those things that's so normalized where initially it was just like, oh, the news, man, and people are dying every day, and they did, but I think the number is daunting when you look at it and you see that counter on the news every day counting up. And then I think it's different when you're 3 years in and you know somebody who knows somebody who knows somebody who knows, and like everybody around you has had it to some extent. And you're like, oh yeah, you know, and then there are the people who's like, yeah, I lost a bunch. And there are people who like, yo man, I lost. But dude, think about it, bro. If you have 100 family members who got it and friends and whatever, and 2 of them died, that's still a good number, in the grand scheme of things. It's a shitty, obviously the individuals makes it shitty for you, but like, yeah, so it's funny, man. Like now you look at it, you go, man, that's exactly what freaked us out before, but it's just like, yeah, we don't really know how it's gonna affect you. Like you said, there's like 3-4 people in the household that got it. None of you guys had it like exactly the same. Everybody felt something.
Yeah, I had a family member call me today, and he was like, yo man, like how you doing? And I was like, oh, like I'm good. I had a couple bad days, but like I'm probably 98% like fully recovered.
I don't think I checked like yesterday or the day before. I was an asshole friend. I was like, oh, he's fine. You sent me a meme or something somewhere in between. I was like, oh, he's good.
I think I was like, Dak sucks.
I was like, there he goes.
He alright.
I was like, he's alright.
No, man, don't worry, man. My family member that called me today, it wasn't to check on me. He had a computer question.
Yo, how you doing? But
yeah, he be like, bro, like, yo, man, you guys all right? You're like, yeah. Yo, man, how do you fax shit to the computer?
How do I extend this 365 subscription for free?
So yeah, man, it's definitely normalized. And then, like you said, throughout the last couple of years, I've known several even like co-workers who've had it several times.
Yeah,
which sometimes I go like, motherfucker, you work from home. How you keep getting it?
How you keep getting it? The Amazon guy keeps getting it. Bro, that's so true. How you work from home and get out? Because I say you went mostly unscathed for like a year plus,
dude,
right?
Like
when it first, nothing, because you worked from home though, so you didn't have a reason to leave the house.
Yep.
Shit, man.
I was already quarantined.
That I knew people that it was like a recurrent thing. It's been a quarter. It's almost time to get the COVID. Bro, I thought if I didn't get it in Jacksonville, I'm never gonna get it. When I went to Jacksonville a few weeks ago for the game, bro, it was one of those things where I just looked around. I was like, look at us coughing in public and shit, man. I was like, let's go. I was like, it was all cold outside.
Dude,
I wanted to kill you, bro. You sent me that shit. I'm so glad they lost this past. Yo, when you sent me that 1 weekend they lost, I was like, fucking Sean hates me, bro. I was like, why? Why would you do that to me? That shit was ingrained in my brain. Oh, it's like nails on a chalkboard. I was like, and then they started doing it on the broadcast.
Yeah.
Oh, this past weekend, I was like, oh.
All right, man. What you got?
Oh, man. Dude. So, sort of in the, I guess in keeping in the football world, I have you hear these stories all the time about like pro athletes that go broke, you know, pro athletes that are in the news because they committed crimes or whatever it is, man. And so I read this story this week about Warrick Dunn. I remember Warrick Dunn, the former running back to the Tampa Bay Bucks
State,
and Atlanta, Florida State. Yeah, so Warrick Dunn, man. You know the story, man. Warrick Dunn had a mom who was a police officer. I think she was killed in the line of duty. I think she was a single mom, raised him and his siblings and all that stuff. Warrick Dunn dedicated a lot of his like a life, like his career, he was making money into building houses for like families, for, and, like single moms and all that kind of stuff.
That's
like,
what it was.
So
for single
cool
moms.
For single moms, and he's done that a lot. Like, and he's done hundreds of houses.
And he was doing that while he was playing.
And he was doing that while he was playing, and he has continued to do that. And so, you know, I wanted to shed light. He's also helped. So he's helped build more than 170 homes for needy families.
Oh, wow.
In his time.
Is he doing it all in like the Tampa area?
No, I think it's there, and I think it's in his hometown.
Where's he from?
He grew up somewhere in the South.
Is it in Florida?
Man. No.
Okay.
No. Somewhere in the South. I'll tell you right now. For some reason, I want to say like the.
No, I'll look. Man. Tell me your story.
So that I wanted to call attention to that, but then the other part is, you know, you always hear of these pro athletes going broke, and one of the things that stuck out to me was that. this story about Warwick Dunn this week, and I had no idea about it. And it's funny, man, because I'm a nerd when it comes to this sort of the economics of football. But when Warwick Dunn took his contract with the Atlanta Falcons, the way he sort of structured his deal was he took sort of he didn't take the max. He took like $9 million, something like that, whatever it was.
Okay.
And then in that $9 million, or at the end of it, he took $9 million and he invested in buying the team. So he had like a $36 million contract. That's all he made lifetime in the NFL. So it's 36 mil is a lot of money, but when you're talking in the context that guys today get that per year, it's crazy. Warwick Dunn made that over the life like of his career. So when Atlanta gave him that contract, he obviously used that money to live off, but then at the end on his way out, he took $9 million and bought 1% of the Atlanta Falcons.
Oh, wow.
1% today at $9 million is worth over 50 easily if you're just talking team valuations. But then he also has a piece of every single. So every time these TV contracts change, his obviously net worth and his percentage changes. He gets a cut of the gates. He gets a cut of the souvenirs in the stadium. He gets a cut of the food, everything. And so like he's turned that into generational money.
Yeah.
So $36 million, he's flipped it into this investment in himself and the Atlanta Falcons. And he actually, which I didn't know he owned the Atlanta Falcons, man. And so when you look at this guy who's dedicated sort of his life to paying back his community and, you know, recognizing the situation that he was in and that he wasn't sort of unique in that. There was a lot of people in that. And then, you know, I think you always hear the pro athlete that goes broke. You know, what's the statistic? It's like 60 or 70% of pro athletes are broke within like 2 years of exiting whatever pro league. It's really bad in the NBA and the NFL. And to see that he's turned that into generational wealth and he has continued to like give back to his community. So it's actually accelerated his ability to be able to give back.
Right.
I just thought about it. It was such a cool story. Such a I remember him being such a great player too in the NFL. You're not talking about a guy who was like, you know, oh yeah, he's like sort of like a B squad player. Like Warwick Dunn was the man when he was playing.
Was he part of that Super Bowl team?
Yes, with the Atlanta Falcons. They lost, but he was part of that. No,
but I mean with Tampa.
No, I think he was already a Falcon by then.
Really?
I think so. Yeah,
because he played with who was the other the fullback?
Oh the guy with the crazy last name. No, Allstott. That's what you're talking about. Mike Allstott. Yeah, he did play with him, but he was on the Michael Vick Falcons team. So I think he might have. Had he just left? He might have just.
He
left.
Wasn't on that.
So I don't think he was on that Tampa team that won a Super Bowl. Okay. Because I think he was already in Atlanta, and in Atlanta he did that. He was on those Michael Vick squads that were like going to NFC. I think they were making deep playoff runs in Michael Vick's first few years, but he
So Baton Rouge, by the way.
It's okay. I thought it was in the South. I was like, I knew it was in the South somewhere. I just couldn't. Baton Rouge, Louisiana. Baton Rouge, Louisiana. His mother was a cop there, and just killed in line of duty. He has given back to Baton Rouge. Did it in Tampa when he played here. I think did it in Atlanta as well. Just a cool story, man. A guy that's continued to sort of give back.
Man, she was shot and killed when he was 18.
Yeah, that's wild,
so
man.
Senior in high school.
And I remember them doing, you know how they always do those sad stories when you're watching like football games, like if it's like a playoff game or whatever, and they'll be like, let's spend time. And I remember like for years, I remember seeing that and knowing that story about him and then knowing that he had built the houses and stuff. And then this week I was reading articles and it was about these athletes that sort of turned these like what they call sort of lower end contracts into big money, and one of them was this story, man. I thought it was cool. The other one, man, and not to take away credit from work done, but David Beckham's deal with, which I didn't know either, David Beckham's deal with the Galaxy when he came to MLS. Have you ever heard the whole story behind that, man? David Beckham was playing for Real Madrid at the time, which is like a legendary soccer program, obviously Spain, Real Madrid out of La Liga. He turned down way more money to play in La Liga and stuff to come to LA Galaxy to play. Like, why? Way less money. So at the time, that's what everybody was saying. They're like, why would you take less money? So let's say he was making $20 million a year in Real Madrid at the time, and this is like early 2000s, late 90s. So actually, I think it was late 90s. So the MLS wasn't big yet. The average MLS franchise
They're
at that time.
still not big, by the way.
No, but and you look at it in comparison to now.
Oh, yeah.
Dude, and just to give you some context, so part of his contract, the reason he came over, so let's say he was making $20 million a year. They gave him $5 million. And people were like, you're fucking crazy. You left for $5 million a year. The other thing that he signed was he got to lock in the price for an MLS team had he left. So that's the major contributor here. Was there was a couple things that he got along the way,
Yep.
and one of them was revenue share. So what they don't know is that his base salary, yes, was less than Real Madrid, but he actually negotiated a percentage of MLS revenue, not just LA
wow.
Galaxy. So he got it. So he actually made more money. So he made 50 mil in those first years there because he took a percentage of everything MLS made. But the big thing that he got out of that was the franchise fee for MLS. He locked it in at like 25 million, which at that time was crazy because it was actually 5. And people were like, you know, it seemed stupid. Fast forward to now, and he has since opened up AC Miami or whatever it is, Miami Football Club.
Oh, that's his?
So that's his.
Okay.
So he paid his $25 million fee. But the teams that have recently joined, so Charlotte has joined recently. There's another team. It's not Portland. Anyway, there's been like 3 or 4 expansion teams in MLS in the last 2 or 3 years. Their fees were anywhere from 100 mil to 200 mil.
That's
David Beckham
great.
locked his in at 25.
That's
so
fucking
yeah,
nuts,
it was another
dude.
one that he did. So yeah, man, I just thought it was cool to just shed some light on some of those stories, but specifically Warwick Dunn, man, where he's been giving back to his community. And I think,
Yeah, shout out to that dude,
yeah, I mean, we're always talking about people making an impact, I think, and we always talk about like, man, what happens if this doesn't happen? Like, what's the butterfly effect of that one decision, right? And then, you know, I think someone like Warwick Dunn is like, what happens to these kids if Warwick Dunn doesn't build them a house? What happens to these moms or these dads or the, you know, like what changed in these people's lives just because of this one thing, this one generous sort of action by this one guy? Like you know, even if one person changed the entire trajectory of their life for the better,
Yep.
you know, probably worth it. So I thought it was just cool, man, to just shed some light
And
on
now
that.
that you mentioned it, I'm looking here because someone sent me this week the contracts, and I can't find it right now, but the contracts for Ronaldo and then Messi, what he was offered by the
Saudi club.
The Saudi club. They are ridiculous.
Oh, Ronaldo's making like $250 a year right now, 200 mil a year.
Dude, I have to find.
No,
this, bro.
I think Ronaldo's is 250 for 2 years or 2.5 years, which that's stupid money. And I think rumor has it that Messi's been offered anywhere between 300 to 400 million per year to go play.
It's something ridiculous.
something
yeah,
nuts.
it's like these MLB, you know, / NFL like huge contracts.
Oh my God.
For a year.
For 1 year.
Yeah.
You talking about Ronaldo is gonna go make $250 million to go play in Saudi for 2 years. And you know what was crazy? They're actually changing their law to allow him to play there so that his girlfriend can live with him, because remember, it's Saudi Arabia. You know,
we don't allow that shit.
you see how real quick that shit changed? I love it because it shows that we're not the only ones willing to compromise our morals. I was like, shout out to you guys. It made me respect them more. I was like, all right, they're willing to.
You guys aren't as special as
You
we
guys,
thought.
yeah. I was like, okay. I thought they'd be sticklers for that shit. Like, nope, you know, because of the World Cup stuff, they were like, no, we're not selling alcohol in these things or whatever. In the Middle East, obviously, it wasn't Saudi, but still, it's. I thought that they would be sort of a little more rigid on that, and supposedly they're looking like amendments to their law specifically to allow Ronaldo and his girlfriend to live together while he's there playing.
That's freaking nuts. Bro.
Listen, man, that's Saudi money.
That's had all money.
We need to get a soundboard with like sound effects,
Right.
And that needs to be one of them. That money. I miss George and that twang.
But yo, man, staying with sports, like this weekend, you know, huge games in the NFL. For those of you NFL fans, the fucking Cowboys, man, dude, not for nothing, man. I thought the Cowboys had a good enough team to beat that San Francisco team, only because San Fran had Brock Purdy playing.
Yeah, you figured the talent was good enough to
Talent. Yeah, I thought that their defense and their they had skill positions on the offense, bro. Dak Prescott, listen, man. I'm gonna let you take it, man.
Let's fucking go. Listen, this has been the year of vindication for me. I ain't want to rub it in, but I've been talking so much shit about Dak and Russell Wilson for so long, and this year was like, y'all see what I've been telling you guys for fucking ever,
Bro.
And listen, it's funny. I had this conversation with my brother over the weekend. I actually think Dak today is better than the Dak I was ripping when he got the deal a few years ago. Like, I think he's a better quarterback today.
Yeah, probably.
I just don't think he's a $40 million quarterback. And that's why I kept saying, like, I don't care what the market tells you.
I think he's like 20 to 25
Yeah, 20, 25 mil. I think he's in that range where you have Ryan Tannehill and those guys. I'm like, that's what he is.
He's a middle of the road guy.
He's a middle of the road guy. He's not a Joe Burrow. He's not a Josh Allen. He's not a Patrick Mahomes. And he's getting that. No, I think next year he's the second highest paid player in the NFL, if I'm not mistaken. His cap hit to the Cowboys. That's absurd. Like, I'm sorry. And I wouldn't go as far as to say that Dak is trash, because I actually think Dak is better than Russell Wilson. I just don't think he's worth the $40 million. Like, I never thought he was that guy. Listen, and in his defense, I think if Dak has Sean Payton, I think if Dak has Mike McDaniels, I think if Dak has Pete Carroll, he probably takes this team to an NFC Championship game. I think the
coach. You think McCarthy is?
I think McCarthy's trash.
Is a problem,
dude. McCarthy had Aaron Rodgers for 15 seasons, and he got one Super Bowl out of him, and no other appearances, right, that I can think of. Did he get one more appearance?
Did they go twice?
And an NFC that was weak. You know what I'm saying? Like, you were dealing with the Lions that were struggling. You dealt with the Bears teams that struggled. You dealt with the Vikings team that were really bad for about a decade. Like, the best you got out of Aaron Rodgers was a bunch of these appearances in the NFC title game and then out.
So do you bring Aaron Rodgers over? Do you reunite McCarthy with Aaron Rodgers?
No, because I don't think
on that Cowboys team.
No, not on that Cowboys team. Because I think you do it if you get rid of that coach. I don't think you do it with Mike McCarthy. No, I do think Aaron Rodgers could win a Super Bowl with that team. I think Tom Brady could win a Super Bowl with that team. I think, honestly, I do think if Sean Payton was coaching that Cowboys team beats San Fran. Like, I do think that Dak would benefit from someone like a Sean Payton and all that. But I just don't think he's good enough to overcome his shortcomings with, like, meh coaching.
So here's the other thing that I saw from Dak in that game. There were two plays. Forget about his turnovers.
Mm-hmm.
There was two plays, one to CeeDee Lamb and one to, who's the other, like, kind of high-profile receiver? I can't remember his name right now. He underthrows both of them. Both of them outthrow his ball by a lot.
Yeah.
And they both had to come back. CeeDee Lamb makes the catch, the other guy doesn't.
No. Was it T.Y.?
T.Y. Hilton? It might have been him.
T.Y. Hilton, yeah.
I'm not sure, so don't quote me on that. But I remember watching that play, and I go like, yo, throw the fucking ball. Like, if CeeDee Lamb, it goes for a score if the ball is placed where it's supposed to be.
Yep.
T.Y. Hilton, if that's the guy that was there, makes the catch at least. If the ball is where it's supposed to be.
Dude, there's a couple times where he throws balls into the dirt where you're like, that guy was by himself. Like, why did that ball, and it hops like 5 feet in front of him and it hits the ground, and you're just like.
Dude, but these two were like him loading up to launch it. And I'm like, yo, your guy outran your throw.
Yeah. Which, he's supposed to at least have a good arm. You know, like.
Yes.
Yeah, man. I go back to. Just never thought he was worth the $40 million, man. And I think these, like, fan bases get caught up in it's his last year, he'll leave. It's like, okay, let him leave. Like,
let him go.
Let him go test the market. Because you know what would have happened to Dak? Nobody would have given him $40 million. You would have got him for 30 or whatever, 25. Like, I think it's interesting. I think the Giants are in that predicament right now where they're gonna have to pay Daniel Jones. So you pick up. I don't know if it's 5th year is a team option or a player option.
Okay.
Yeah. So he's 4 years in, if I'm not mistaken. The 5th year, I can't remember if it's a player option or a team option. But I think what will happen is you either have to franchise tag him for 1 year, and so maybe you pick it up and then you franchise tag him 1 more year to see what he's got, or you just go try to address it in the draft. Like, if you're the Giants, you massively overachieved with that roster. That's how good Dable is. Like, going back to coaching, like, if Dak has Dable, like, probably wins that game because you didn't get blown out. You know, like you said, you're playing against Brock Purdy. Lost by 7. And it's hilarious, man. I was like, just go up by a touchdown. These guys aren't going to catch you. Like it. And I've never looked forward to a field goal more in my life. At the end of that
extra
game.
Point.
Oh, my God, the extra point. Never looked forward. I'm like, please
Dude,
score.
The first one I got
blocked. This guy kick an extra point. It was going to go. It was going to be bad, too.
It was going to be wide left.
Yeah, unless it does the whole hook thing. Like, some field goals tend to draw.
Yeah, no.
But that shit looked terrible, man. I'm like, yeah, that's probably another miss. And you know, it's funny. In some ways, it was worse than the miss, I think, because now that guy's in his head for the rest of that game, going, "Shit, I still don't know if I can make one."
Right.
Like, and then his first opportunity to get one, like, I don't care that he's hit those other field goals. If you have to hit an extra point after you miss 4 of them to tie this game up, to send it into overtime to go to the NFC title game, that's a different pressure, man. And I would have loved to watch that because I'm like, this shit, the dramatics of that. I was like, how am I looking forward to a kick? Because I felt like the rest of the game was kind of meh. You know, like even though it wasn't a blowout, I never felt like Dallas.
To me, it was the best game of the weekend.
Yeah, because all the rest of the games were just so bad. Like, I didn't foresee. I picked the Bengals to win. I didn't foresee them winning in the blowout.
Right.
I picked San Fran to win that. I obviously KC and then
Philly.
And then I actually thought the Giants were gonna shock. I picked the Giants to win that game, man. And
really?
They got smashed. Yeah,
No,
I should have went with conventional wisdom, which is like Philly was gonna rock them.
I thought Philly. I didn't know they were gonna blow them out like that. I thought the Giants would show up better, but I thought Philly was gonna win. I like Jalen Hurts, bro.
Yo, so speaking of, so while I'll sit here and talk shit how I was right about Russell Wilson and Dak, Jalen Hurts is making me eat my words right now, man. I didn't think Jalen Hurts was an NFL quarterback, and he has gotten progressively better. And I think more than anything, what I like about Jalen Hurts, his decision making has been so good. Like when I've watched the games of him, where he knows sort of when to take off and then slide, and then the reads he's making with defenses, I'm like, he's picked it up, bro. But I have to say, I think the best thing that happened to Jalen Hurts was the adversity that he faced in Alabama. And then having to leave to Oklahoma, and then having to get doubted and not getting picked like in the first round.
Right, because even in Oklahoma, I mean, he was good.
Yeah,
but he wasn't great.
And so, you know me, like I always knock these quarterbacks to go to these big name programs because you play with the best. But I think what separates Jalen, it's the same thing that separates Joe Burrow. Like Joe Burrow went to Ohio State but wasn't a starter, and then has to work his way into LSU. I go, these guys, I think the guys that have to get some adversity, it's like, yeah, you're talented enough, but man, but are you gonna work hard enough? Like when shit hits the fan, like are you gonna have the guts to stick in there? Because it's hard to when you're the quarterback at Alabama or Oklahoma and you can just walk down that hallway and do whatever you want and you basically run this, like it's hard to want to get up at 5 a.m. and watch tape and do some push-ups and do whatever. Like, and I think having to do that, I think you're seeing that with Jalen Hurts, man. That guy's trajectory, and then even when he talks, man, you go like, okay, there's a leadership quality there that his team clearly respects him, and
he's the same dude. He's kind of even
all the time,
the time.
And I think I underestimated that or didn't know about that with him, and I didn't think he was an NFL quarterback, man. But so far, I'm like, dude, he has proven me wrong. Now I do think Philly comes back to reality here next season. They may win it this year because I mean they're really good right now, so it's tough. Like I'm still sort of picking San Fran to win that game.
Yeah. Even with Brock Purdy, man?
Yeah, man. I'm still picking them. I'm not confident in that pick, but I'm still picking them. I think it'll be Niners Bengals Super Bowl, and whether or not Philly wins, I don't know yet. But if Philly gets by and they win, I think this is their window to win this, and then it's gone. Because I think what happens with Philly is that now you're gonna have to start paying these guys. Like it's perfect. It's a perfect storm of stuff right now. You're not paying Jalen Hurts. You're not playing the kid from Alabama, the wide receiver, is it Adams, Devontae Smith?
No, Devontae Smith.
Yeah, so you're paying Devontae Smith,
which by the way, he threw to CD Lamb in college.
Yeah. So I think this is the Eagles' window. So I think if they don't get it this year, I don't imagine that they're this dominant next season because now you have a whole off season of people watching tape and doing that. But I really want to see how Jalen then responds to that. What happens when now you've progressed and you've sort of taken this, you've taken it up a level, and now everyone else has to match you.
Yep.
Like, do you keep doing that? And man, based on what I've seen in this kid's like sort of work ethic and his sort of football IQ and the ability to make some of these throws that I didn't think he had it in him, I'm like, man, I think he's gonna have an okay career, man.
Yeah, man, I've been rooting for him, man.
Yeah, he's hard to root against,
bro.
Sure.
He's one of the, like when he was in college and at Bama, and then they bring in Tua to replace him in the national championship game. And then he leaves for Oklahoma. I felt bad for him then.
Yeah, me too. He gets pulled at halftime of a national title game, man.
Yes. Ugh. And then, but to see him still get drafted, not high, but he still got drafted, and then to come into the NFL, and he's now in year 3?
Yeah.
And to come into his own like he has, man, it just speaks to the amount of work that guy has put in.
It's so good. And to
you
watch his
can't help
teammates
but
talk
to-
about him,
yeah.
and to see how he commands like the huddle and like the pre-snap sort of like reads that these guys make that you give a lot of credit to like the the Peyton Mannings and like the Aaron Rodgers and Tom Brady's and even Donovan McNabb, like these guys are good pre-snap, like where they're just calling you out of things and they're reading the defenses. And to see Jalen Hurts sort of make that evolution of the you can see him pre-snap like making changes and sometimes he changes just the direction of the run or whatever it is, and you're just like, okay, they trust you to do that, but then you're making the right calls, you're making these right decisions, man. Like you're not relying on your talent, on your legs and all that stuff. And so he's been or his arm. So yeah, man, I like to see it, man. I was so wrong about him because I didn't think he was going to cut it at all.
I do want to say this though, man. Jalen Hurts and Brock Purdy will be playing this weekend for NFC Championship, and both of them together don't add up to my age.
For real? Is that a fact?
They're 47 together. I want to say they're 23 and 24.
Bro, Brock Purdy though, that kid might be the oldest 20-year-old on earth, bro. What is Brock Purdy? 24? 22?
I think it's either 23 or 24. One of the. I think Jalen Hurts is a year older. I think he's 24, and then Brock Purdy's 23.
Wow.
I'm 48, so they're 47 together.
Damn. You know what I love though is that you got to think about the 4 quarterbacks left are sort of the young guns of this generation.
I love it, bro.
It's so good, man. Like you said, I always
I'm so
kind of worried.
I mean, I'm not. Listen, I'm a big Brady fan, but I was glad to see both Aaron Rodgers and Tom Brady get bumped. This new class of quarterbacks in the NFL, and then who's the guy from Baltimore that we've been talking about?
Oh, Lamar Jackson.
Lamar Jackson is missing from this equation, right? But man, the new class of QBs is phenomenal. Man.
Oh my God, dude! Like you said, it's funny, man, because I always I'm not old enough yet to have seen like multiple cycles of people, right? I as a kid, I watched the Dante Culpeppers and I saw the end of Marino and I saw the end of Young and all that stuff, right? But then if I'm looking at my sort of generation of from my teens to now, it was Tom Brady and Aaron Rodgers and the end of Brett Favre and Ben Roethlisberger and these guys. Like, it's weird because it's like, oh man, I'm never gonna get to see these guys again, right? It's like this weird feeling of like, man, what a bummer, these guys are on their way out. And I feel that way sort of in the NBA about like LeBron, like, man, LeBron's out and like Wade's already left and Kobe's not playing and you see the Carmelos and you're like, fuck, what's this next things like? But in the NFL, man, these guys are so fun to watch, man. The new gen, like I said, like in that you can throw in Justin Herbert. You can throw there's just so many young quarterbacks coming up right now that you're just like, man, this is gonna be a really fun league for the next decade.
If Lamar Jackson plays in that Baltimore, Cincinnati
they win
game,
because
they
probably
win that game.
Man. Like Cincinnati lucked out for sure in that game because him sticking the ball out cost them that game.
Yep,
and. It sucks because you never want to fault a player for trying to win that game.
No. It was the right play.
It was the right play. Yeah. But it's funny because they always tell you, like, don't stick that ball out unless you're, like, right there and you know it's going to cross the plane and don't leave it hanging out there. And fuck, man, like, who could have seen that coming? But you said if Lamar Jackson's even in the playoffs, man, like, how fun would that have been that you get this round where it's, like, Lamar Jackson? If you still had Garoppolo in there or even Trey Lance, like, Brock Purdy's sort of, spoiled with here's another young guy. But if that San Fran team still had, Trey Lance, they're probably still here. They're probably still here with Garoppolo, I think, because the rest of that roster is so good. Like,
I don't know about Trey Lance, but
yeah, I haven't seen him enough. But I feel like that team around is around.
Just don't throw
picks. That's it. So. Fuck, man, it's so fun. And the Bengals, to me, man, have become like my de facto second rooting, like the team that I root for second, man. They're so fun. I don't see them
losing, bro.
They're so fun. Joe Burrow's so cool. Joe Burrow has this swagger about him that you're just like, man, there's like this fine line between arrogance and this swagger that I
And
want to
he
root for you.
totes it perfectly,
and he totes
bro.
it so good, man. I'm like, dude, you're so good. Like even his little shit talk where the girl interviews him and they were talking about the whole neutral site game, and he goes like, I better send those refunds. and like you can't even be mad. Like it's not even arrogant. It's like, yeah, bro, like goddamn right. Like it better see, you know what I mean? Like, and the Bengals have become like now, like since my team's like not in it. And like they're like the team that I root for. Like it's so funny because normally I would have picked like the Giants because I have family that are like big Giants fans, and I did root for them in their game. But like the Bengals have become like my favorite team to watch.
Dude, I think they're gonna beat KC.
I think so too. Yeah, I think if you're KC, you've lost to them 3 times in a row, and this will be 4. I think it's hard to overcome that.
Patrick Mahomes has
the high ankle sprain. Yeah.
Yeah, man. I don't know, man. It's gonna be
like
it's gonna
it
be
might get ugly,
weekend.
like the Buffalo game. Like
are they both on? Are both games on Sunday or is one Saturday?
Both on Sunday.
They are both Sunday.
Yeah, both Sunday. So, yeah, man. And so you could potentially get a Bengals. Dude, imagine you get either one is good. You get Bengals Eagles. That'll be fantastic. You get Niners.
I'm so
Eagles.
happy that these 4
Niners,
teams
Eagles.
that are in it.
Yeah.
I don't even care. Like whoever ends up making it, I'm happy to watch the game.
Yeah, because it's not going to be a boring game either way. Because if you get Eagles KC, whoa.
Yeah.
And if you get KC San Fran, you get that rematch, right? No.
Yep.
Wait.
Yes.
Yeah, you do. You get that
From
rematch
from a few years ago.
Like, how good is that? And then if
That
you
was
get Bengals.
that was KC's. Oh, that was Patrick Mahomes' only Super Bowl.
Yes, was against. That's
Was
right.
against the
And he
San
was
Fran.
losing that whole game until the end. He was losing until like 4 minutes left in the fourth, right?
Something like that.
And then you get the Bengals, who lost last year,
Who are looking for redemption?
who are looking for redemption. And so, like, who did they lose to last year? Who won the Super Bowl
Rams.
last year? That's right. So, like, you get the Bengals. Did the Bengals beat San Fran or the Eagles? Dude, if Joe Burrow ever got a decent offensive line, that team's going to be scary as fuck. Like, he doesn't even have protection, which I think is it's telling about the Bills. The Bengals played with 3 missing players 3 starters missing from their offensive line, and they didn't get a single sack.
Matter.
They didn't get a single sack, which is crazy. Last year,
They're missing Von Miller.
bro, as a bitter Titans fan, last year in the playoffs, the Titans sacked him 11 times and still lost. I think it's a playoff record. They sacked him 11
in one game?
times in one game and still lost to the
outta here,
Bengals
bro.
in that game. Like it's and then Bills didn't get to him once, and they have like a offensive line that's like duct taped together. Like that's crazy, man.
That's nuts,
Dude, so really quick, predictions. Brady comes back.
Brady comes back, but goes to, I don't know, maybe Miami.
Okay, that's what I think. I think it's Miami,
or like a
Raiders.
No,
San Fran?
I don't think. I think San Fran, but now like if Brock Purdy, actually, if Brock Purdy even loses this weekend, how do you not start that guy next year?
Yeah, I think so too. I think Brock Purdy has become the starter in San Fran.
Yeah, because you let Garoppolo go. I don't know what happens to the contract with Trey Lance. But
No, you keep him on as a backup, and then I think you trade away Garoppolo. And then I do think Brady ends up a Dolphin or a Raider. Those are the only 2 teams.
I don't think
ends
the
up-
Raiders, man.
No. If I had to bet, I'm probably picking the Dolphins because I think that he'd want to stay in Florida now, and then I think
'Cause
I
his
think
kids are
Brady.
here too,
Yeah,
right?
his kids are here, but I also think Brady. So his kids are here. That roster's phenomenal. He looks at that O line and those receivers, and he's like, shit. And I also think that he goes, wait, the Bills are on their way down. Like, I think people look at Josh Allen as an obstacle, and it's really not right now because that Bills team, man, is very Josh Allen, like, sort of, like, I think Colin Cowherd was talking about this. Like, if he has a bad game, they have a bad game. Like, there's no, but they can't beat you any other way. And so I think if you look at Brady, I don't think that scares him. I also think he's petty enough to want to beat Belichick twice a year. So,
Ooh.
in that division.
I didn't think about that.
So I think he'd wanna do
They just
that.
hired Bill O'Brien.
Yes, they hired him back to be
Which-
their offensive coordinator.
Good for them.
Yeah, but they need to, man. They fucking had Patricia as the offensive, who's never, So I think I think it's funny, man. The Aaron Rodgers thing. There was rumors that Tennessee might sort of make that phone call, which I think they'd be crazy not to at least ask the question. I don't think Aaron Rodgers changes the Titans because the issues with the Titans are if you don't address that O-line, it doesn't matter. Like,
Right.
I saw what Brady looked like without an O-line
Oh, man,
2 weeks
that
ago.
was pretty bad.
So I don't think it matters. But, whatever, maybe he ends up a Titan. But I actually think if I had to put money on it, I think Aaron Rodgers walks away. I think he retires.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that
Dude,
he retires.
Aaron Rodgers, Cowboy.
Can you imagine, man? So I wouldn't put it against him just because I think it'd give him a chance to play in the NFC. But, dude, just to give you a wilder scenario here, Minnesota Vikings, you get to play Green Bay twice a year, and then you have a roster that's already sort of built for a championship because their defense is good. Everything else on there is good. You might be a quarterback away. You get to play indoors. Yeah, you're in Minnesota, but you get to play indoors most of your games. And you're a 39-year-old quarterback. I'm like, and you get to go stick it to your old team twice because he's bitter.
But do you? Is his contract up now?
No, so he has to request a trade, and this is why I lean towards retirement.
They won't trade him in the division.
No, probably not. But this is why I lean towards retirement because I think is not only is he has to tell them, yo, trade me, but then he also has to approve who he gets traded to because I'm pretty sure he has a no trade clause. So, I'm leaning retirement, man. Something strikes me that Aaron doesn't give a fuck about football no more. Like, I think if Aaron walked away tomorrow, he'd be okay with what he accomplished. And I think unless a team, so like a San Fran, like I could see him doing that. But I think Brock Purdy has made that really hard for San Fran to go, our thing holding us back as a quarterback. Like, I think it's really tough to make that decision right now, San Fran. That's not it. Like, you're really good. You just need to, you just need a game where you win it. Like,
and so you figure at this point, Aaron Rodgers would be just a freaking salary cap hit.
Yeah, so do you bring him on for 1 or 2 years, potentially ruining the chemistry you have built there that you could have a dynasty in San Fran, right? And that's why I think like the deeper San Fran gets into the playoffs, the less likely I think they're going to go Aaron Rodgers or Tom Brady. So then what that leaves me with is like he's not going to go to like Houston because he's not going to want to go to a rebuild.
No.
Yeah, I think Tennessee was only because I think he likes Rabel, and I know he's built property in Nashville. But I go, do you want to be part of a rebuild there? Because unless Tennessee makes massive free agent signings on the O-line and you need a receiver, the defense is okay. Like, they'll hold their own. So, yeah, maybe you could talk him into that. But it's like, okay, he has the same situation he had in Green Bay. No O-line, no receivers. No, like, why would you leave? So the more I think about it.
Bring in Devontae Adams.
Oh, man. He's in Oakland, or not Oakland, in Las Vegas, who's also on the market for a quarterback. Which Derek Carr, not as sexy of a name right now, but Derek Carr ends up, I think, somewhere like with Houston. Does he end up in? I forget. The Jets are probably on the market for a quarterback.
They absolutely are.
So does Aaron Rodgers go to the Jets? I don't think so either. I don't think that's worth it. Because I think if
at 39, bro, you go to a contender.
Yeah, and that's what I think. I'm like, you have to believe that the Jets are a quarterback away from a title.
Right.
And that's why I'm like, the more I think about it, the more I think he walks away, man. I think if you're Aaron Rodgers, the only reason a title. And so unless you can get traded to a situation where you really feel like, oh, I can win the title here.
All right, man, give me your predictions. What you got
for the playoffs?
For the Super Bowl.
For Super Bowl. I think it's Bengals-Niners, man.
Yeah?
Bengals-Niners. Super Bowl.
I think it's Bengals-Philly.
Bengals-Philly?
Yep.
Yeah, either one is going to be awesome to watch. And actually, you can swap in KC for any of those if wrong, and it's going to be a fun Super Bowl, man. Dude, if you want to see a high-powered, I think it's Eagles and any one of the 2 teams from the AFC, like KC. Can you imagine Eagles-KC? That would light it up.
Either one.
Yeah. It's going to be a fun one either way, man. That's going to be really cool. Really cool to watch, so.
All right, man. Oof. Yeah, man, did you see, I don't know what you want to get into next. I see these major companies, man, a few major companies actually are dropping college requirements for new hires.
So
we've been talking about this shit for I don't know, bro, since the beginning of this podcast, man.
Bro. And before the podcast, we'd always talked about the school system. Like, so do you think that's in response to sort of that trend, that change in the trend that people don't go to college? Or do you think that's in response to the shortage in the workforce, or a combination?
Because I mean, so if you look at these companies, Google, EY, Okta, Penguin Random House, Microsoft, and Apple. Okay, so you got, excuse me, you have the majority are all tech companies who are laying people off.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So that Google laid some people off. I know Meta laid people off. I don't know if Apple did that yet. I believe Amazon did. Right. So I don't think it's because of that. I think it's because people are shying away from college, but still able to get the skill set. If you want to be a programmer, and I'm not saying programmer is the only thing here, but you can learn all this shit for free online.
Yeah. Anything
Plus,
that you want to learn is online.
Right. Plus, Google has their thing where you can go and get like certified in certain sort of tech jobs, through Google, and I'm sure there's other companies that offer that as well. And the
AI. Did you see the Chat GPT?
Oh my God.
Did you see this? So we were talking about this on here a couple weeks ago.
Yes.
Did you see what it did to the MBA exam for Wharton?
It
passed the Wharton. I think it got a B on that exam, and that's one of the most prestigious business schools in the country.
Yeah, and it also did it on the
bar. Yep, and then the other one, I think it was a medical. I think it was a medical one. It passed too, so it didn't ace it 100%.
Right,
but it passed them.
Yeah.
So I think
we are entering into another place, bro. Right now,
it's uncharted waters,
and
man.
We talked about this. I think it was last week, or no, it wasn't last week because we weren't here last week, but several weeks ago, perhaps. Like I'm not giving my kids this information, but I'm going, my kids by senior year, they'll be using, and probably by next year, they'll be using Chat GPT in some aspect of their schoolwork.
Absolutely.
To write papers, paragraphs, essays.
It's going to be their version of like what Spark Notes was for us, or like Cliff Notes, or what, like, but even better because it's literally the answer to.
It's the answer.
Or I think now you get like Course Hero, or those sort of sites that.
But dude, there's so many AI like sites popping up that do a range of things, and I'm going, man, like these kids are about. School's about to get real easy.
Yeah, dude, I know someone who's. I can't tell you who they are. I can tell you off air, but who has invested in AI for the last couple of years, like someone who's creating a company.
Yep.
And it's funny because even they were telling me sort of like that, how not only their investment has grown exponentially, but the sort of offers that they're getting from existing companies, whether it be Microsoft or other major tech companies that are sort of trying to buy in early into their company, and they keep turning it down because they're like, no, we've got something. And so they're doing sort of rounds of investment, but they're not sort of trying to flip off the company yet, or spin off the company yet. They and it's wild because this person has been doing this for years before, like ChatGPT was like a big thing, before all this stuff, and it was AI based. And the way they were telling me that it learns and that it programs, and it's literally like an app. And it learns and it interacts and it does all this stuff, and you just go, man, that sounds pretty wild. In the future, that's going to be crazy. And you're like, oh shit, we're there.
The future's now.
Yeah, it's just so wild, man. To see how this stuff has changed. It's funny, man, because I'm looking at it and I'm going, fuck, I'm not using this like I should be. I need to be using this like I'm fucking around with it, asking it like stupid shit, and I'm going like, this could actually be really, really helpful right now.
Yeah, like even like at your job.
Oh my God, yeah, bro. It's just so good. Like I said, I think I've joked around with trying to get like titles for the podcast where I'm like, I've literally typed in podcast. We talked about this, and
it did the same thing,
and it gave me titles. Dude, some of them were fucking good.
Yeah,
I'm like, damn, I should have did that. And it was like, like I know I've heard of podcasts and sort of YouTube creators using it to write them a script or using it to come up with like an outline, and I'm like, man, how long before, like you and I meet up and we're like, yo, we want to talk about XYZ, and then we just plop it in and it just gives us like a list of, whether it's topics or articles or talking points or whatever it is, but you just go, oh, fuck yeah, cool. I can jump straight to that. I know what I feel about these things.
Yep.
Like, it's so crazy to see, man. It's wild. Like, so you think these requirements are being downgraded? Well, I guess that adds another element, that going back to your stories,
it's not downgraded, man. I think that you look for the skill and not the degree,
right? So yeah, you're less concerned about the sort of like academic accolades and the whatever shit on paper versus, which is funny, man, because I mean, you've known me for a long time. Like my struggle, I would have said, like early in my career for a long time, was the sort of the degree, and in some ways it still is, right? Like I've made it to a certain point in my career where most people would have had to have an MBA or some other sort of like professional certification, and I've gotten there with like a bachelor's, but my bachelor's didn't even come till way later. And so and one of the things I always preach is like, but like I know the stuff. Like, why do you want this piece of paper? And I know the stuff, and sort of, I sort of had to rely on people taking a chance on me who knew me or who knew I could do it. I couldn't just go into a place with like, hey, yeah, I know this. You know, they're like, no, but do you have a degree in this? It's like, no, my degree. You know, like it was just. And it's interesting to see this sort of like, I always felt like I was being shafted, and to just see the world sort of like make that, it makes me feel a little less crazy or a little less egotistical, I think, because I think at the time, like people look at you, it's just like, no, you're being arrogant about it. And I'm like, no, but I really don't think that I need to go to school to, you know, like it was just like, and it was like, it's not that I felt like I didn't need to know this stuff. It was like, no, I can know this stuff and not have to go get a degree in it. Right? Yeah. And I always valued the experience over education. Now, listen, there is absolute value in getting an education and sort of rounding out those rough edges, I think. But there's nothing replaces, I think, real world experience. And I felt like I had that in abundance. Yeah.
Absolutely not, man. And I think after graduating from college and going into the workforce, I would say that the majority of shit that is actually useful in the workplace, I learned in the workplace.
Yeah, it's all practical, day to day, like doing your job. Like, yeah, it's it's interesting, man. Do you think that's like a trend that continues now, where companies just start to go, and then how do you measure that? Where you just go, okay, I don't want this certification, I don't want this degree, but I need to know that you're capable of handling this job. Do you think that becomes more tests? Do you think the interviews get more stringent? Do you think?
I don't know, man. I think that we're in a phase where things are changing and people are not going to college as much, and companies are beginning to accept that and beginning to accept, maybe certifications, instead of the degree. I think that we're just in this phase where it's almost like a testing phase, where you go, let's see what kind of workers, we end up getting, and are they less than the folks that we were getting previously with degrees or not?
Do it. And so if I go back, say, a decade, probably 9-10 years ago, I remember interviewing for a major international brand based here in Orlando, and the interview, like past the interview portions, and then I got into this phase where it was like testing. They gave me like real world scenarios, and I felt like they were real world scenarios of things they were trying to do. And it was like, hey, we want to do X. Tell us why or why not this is a good or bad move. And so then you could ask questions like, well, what about this? What about this? What about this? And the idea behind it was, I shouldn't have been able to come up with an answer. Like, there wasn't a right answer. It was, they wanted to see how I would go about getting there.
Okay.
And so, and I didn't know this, of course, until afterwards, but because I remember them telling me, and like sort of my initial response was, well, you could do this, 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 and this, and then it leads to this. And then I remember like taking a pause, and I remember going, yeah, I don't think I have enough information. And the guy was just like, yeah. So what do you need? And I was like, well, I need to know this, and I need to know this, and there's this other piece, and then, like sort of going down that road, and then having a conversation with him afterwards, and he was like, no, that's exactly sort of where we wanted to go. It was like, I didn't need you to tell me like,
you didn't want the answer.
I didn't want the answer. I wanted to know how you would get there.
Right.
And then fast forward like a decade later, I would say like within the last year, I've been in scenarios as well where I've spoken to companies, and some of them have either given me sort of like online tests.
Yep.
And some of them, it's the the stereotypical personality shit to make sure you're a good fit, whatever, culturally.
If you were in a blender,
oh my
and
god,
you were the size of a nickel, how do you get out?
How do you get? You could be any type of fruit. What type of fruit would you be? And why wouldn't you jump into the blender with said nickel? Like, so you get those dumbass ones, and then you get like, I got legit, like I felt like I was second on SAT. And it was like these legit exams, and I'm just like, but you're letting me take this at home, and it's timed, but I have the internet, I have a phone, I can just like, answer to that as is, and you're giving me drop downs, and
could you imagine with ChatGPT?
It's just it was just a strange thing, and I remember just thinking like, what is it that you're looking to know here? I've also seen people give you like written exams, and then you like fill in answers and you submit it back. Like, it's just, Really strange,
those are
man.
odd.
Yeah, I just don't. I mean, and I don't know what the right answer is, man. I can say that unequivocally, I have found that in hiring people, I can generally talk to you and know whether or not you're full of shit, especially if I know what I'm talking about, right?
Yeah.
Like if I'm interviewing for a certain role, like there has been roles, not to go too far off. I have interviewed for roles that for whatever reason they reported to me and I had no fucking clue what those things did.
Yep.
And I was super transparent about that. And I remember doing research and talking to people that I knew in those fields and then going like, and then interviewing the person and trying to figure out, and it was harder to figure out if they were full of shit because I wasn't too sure about my thing. But then when it comes into the stuff that I'm sort of comfortable in, I can sort of spot that. And so it just becomes one of those things of like, do I want to work with you or not? You know, like it was just like, it's just one of those. So yeah, man, I don't know what you do with this. Like if you, because I never thought the degree was the end all be all. So then now do you rely on these exams? Do you rely on field? Do you rely on
I don't know, man. Like I said, I think this is sort of an experimental portion of the workforce and how we're going to be fulfilling those positions. Yo, man, how we doing on time? I know.
We're right at an hour, bro.
Okay, good.
Who you got? What you got?
I want to hit you up on something. So coming into 2023, we are only, what's today, the 24th?
Yeah, 24.
We are 24 days into 2023. And so far, in the U.S., we've had 39 mass shootings.
We're back, baby. We're back. America, baby.
It's not a...
Take that, COVID.
It's not a good look.
Oh, it wasn't a brag? Oh, I'm sorry.
But keeping that in mind, are you afraid of dying?
Man, so personally, I have a suffocating fear of death. Like, I don't, maybe or maybe not. We've talked about this before. I don't even know if I've told you this. Like,
you've told me that you like almost, but I think you've framed it around almost like a FOMO.
Yeah. So, but I will say, okay, yeah. So that's good. So I don't know that I've ever even said this out loud. Like once every 4 months, I have a day where I'm consumed by that thought.
Okay.
Like that fear of dying, and for that day, I'm so anxious, like a desperate, just. It's not even anger. It's not even sadness. It's literally like a desperate feeling. Like the best way I can describe it is like I feel like you're in a pool of water and it's just getting closer to like covering your nose and your mouth. And and like it's just like really desperate, anxious feeling. And it happens to me like once every 3 or 4 months. And it's all surrounded of, for whatever reason, that day I'll think about dying. And then I think about what that means about the FOMO. And I think about everything that I miss out on. I think about all the things that I haven't done. I think about what happens when I'm not here. And like the thought of like the world existing without me in it just consumes me.
Really?
Because like it's not that I feel like the world revolves around me, but it's almost this thing like I only know this world with sort of me in it. And so like the fact that I could the fact like me, it's incomprehensible for me to think of that the world could go on without me. Like even though I know that, it's like this thing of like, fuck, there's so much that's gonna happen that I'm never gonna see. There's so much that's gonna happen that I'm not gonna, and then I get caught up in the thought of like, what haven't I done? Or what do I want to do? What would make me feel fulfilled? Because I go, does that come from a feeling of never feeling fulfilled? Due to the point where it's like a desperation. Like it's so bad. And I used to get it as a child. And so that's how I know it's this thing. Like I used to get it as a child and I went through phases as a child where this thought would consume me for like a week or two at a time. And then as an adult, it's happened less frequently, but it still happens, man, where I'm telling like 3 times a year, I'll have a day where I'm just like, it makes me sad and it makes me desperate and it makes me angry and like it's all these emotions, man. And then at the end of it, I'm left with like disbelief and almost like I don't want to accept the fact that that's going to be a reality.
Okay.
And then if you ask me, what is it that I would want to accomplish? I couldn't give you that answer.
Well, hold on. So for me, I don't have a necessarily a fear of death. I would say like I don't want to die. Mm-hmm. Not now anyway, right? The fear, and I would say I'm afraid of not being there for my sons.
Yeah,
because I know there's still times when I wish my father was here because I want to selfishly run things by somebody who has my DNA.
It's a great way to put it. Like,
and so I don't like. My dad lived a long life, and so I'm like, you know, kudos to him.
yeah, like you don't feel like
he did
his time was
thing.
cut short per se.
No,
But
absolutely. I mean, the dude was 90, almost 92.
Yeah.
when he passed, right? So for him, I think that he was fine. But for me, and so I don't think that there's anything that I need to do in order for me to be okay with dying. So then my only thing is like, I just want to be here as long as I can in case my sons need to ask me something or run something by me or get my perspective on something, right? Like that's kind of my thing.
yeah.
But in thinking about that, I wonder if there's anything, even for me, is there any, but I'll ask you, is there anything that because you talked about things that maybe you haven't done, bucket lists, things of that sort. Is there a list or is there a thing that if you did it and you were on that brink of death, you could be like, you know what? I did my thing.
No.
No?
So I think that because, you know, like touching on what you were saying, I think about that a lot. I think about like my son at 50, my daughter at 50. Like I'm young enough that I should be around.
Yeah.
But, you know, if I'm not, fuck, I want to know what their life turns out to be like. I want to know, you know what I mean? Like it's like the idea that they're going to live, you know, hopefully a really long life after me, that I'm going to miss that sucks. Like just the thought of that is, again, it'll consume me for like a day or two. It's just like, well, fuck, man, what happens if like, I don't know, everything. Like, you dude, life changes so fast every day. It's like, what if I go and, you know, my daughter, my son, they have like they change career paths and they do this and they do that. And like that, like the fact that I won't be around to see that like kills me. And then I think that's why I couldn't have something that I could do that I'd be okay, because I think it's not really a matter of doing a thing. It's the fact that things are still happening around me that I really want to be there for. I really want to be present for. And I could take that for like, you know, God forbid, like people lose kids and they outlive their kids. Like I hope that never happens to me.
God,
that's the
nightmare,
that's
bro.
the nightmare scenario, right? And then you go, at that point, do you then sort of like want out because you know, like you're not even supposed to outlive that? But then I go, I don't know. But then I what if they had kids? And then I want to see what, you know, like it's just that whole thing where you go, I see older people all the time, man, and I've like talked to them about this, and they all sort of are like, man, I'm just tired, I'm ready, right? Like you get that scenario where they're just like, I've done stuff, man, I'm good, and I just go, are you though, man, or like are you good, or is it that you're just so physically worn out, and at that point that you're just sort of like, yeah, man, if I can't live the way I used to, then I want out. But if you were 70 years old and modern medicine and you felt pretty good, like to me, like, would you actually still feel that way? Like, would you actually be like, nah, I'm like, I can't imagine there being anything on your list that you could check that you're like, yeah, I'm good. Like, I just can't imagine that, because there's always things to check.
The reason why I asked you that was I heard an interview recently with Rick Rubin.
Okay.
You know, famous producer, right?
Oh, he's the man.
Yeah, he's great. Where he told a story of his house was on fire, and his wife, and he goes, yo, man, I have come to a place to where my wife, I almost like suck as a husband, because I go, my wife handles all the other shit, and so it's late at night, and his wife kind of gets up, comes to the room, and yells out something like, fire, like we have to get out, or something like that. He wakes up and goes back to sleep because he's like, oh, she'll take care of it.
You got that right.
So finally, he realizes that, oh shit, my house is actually on fire. I need to get out. So he recently wrote a book. I don't remember the name of the book. You guys can go look it up. But he gets up and his house is on fire. And he gets to a window. And he goes, from the window, it's too far. Like he goes, like I'll die. Like I can't jump out. And to himself, he was like, I wrote the book. I'm good. Like, if I don't get out of this,
I wrote the book.
I'm good. And so he talked about sort of like being at peace with not only what he's accomplished. I would say that, right? I guess in a nutshell, he's at peace with what he's accomplished throughout his life, to include this book that had been on his sort of list of things to do that he accomplished, and essentially just go like, I can pass off my thoughts to not only my family, my friends, and whoever else, knew me from the outside, to pass off my thing. Like, I'm good. And I wondered, I was like, wow, this is so interesting, man, because I wonder if, like, I actually have I bought this book several years ago, and I forget what the title, it's a notebook. Okay. But on the front of the cover, it's like, I don't know, like my genius thoughts or some shit like that, right?
Okay.
And so I just write random shit in there, but things that I think that are worth remembering. And I often wonder, I go like, man, like, 20, 30, 40 years from now, man, will that thing be full of things that I've thought were worth remembering?
Hopefully.
And then, is that my book? You know what I mean? Like, is that my thing that I'll go like, yo, that's it. This is all I got.
Yeah, like, I mean,
you know what I mean?
I think it's why, I've sort of like self diagnosed this over, or I guess discovered this.
I'm gonna let your dog.
Yeah, let him. The dog is wilding out over here because he wants to get out of the room. He's done pretty good sometimes when we have him in here during the pod, but today, actually, he lasted a while. He lasted over an hour.
He did, man. He did good.
Dude, so I've discovered this about me in probably in the last couple of years, is that and you've known me long enough at this point, I change. I shouldn't even say I change hobbies, but I change hobbies a lot, or I get into interests. I sort of bounce around to these different interests a lot. Yep. And a lot of that has to do with, it's just shit that I want to experience, right? Like, like I go through life and I'm like, I want to do the skydiving thing, and I'm like, oh man, I really want to get into scuba diving, and I've always wanted to do stand-up comedy, and I want to get into whatever. Like, it could be anything. Like, and I bounce from hobby to hobby to hobby. It could be like board games to this to that, and I've always done that my entire life. I've always been like, and I know you have a son that's this way, where he's like hyper focused and obsessive over a specific thing or hobby.
For a short period of time.
Yep. And I've always been that way. And I bounce to the next one. And I think as I've gotten older, I've realized it's like my way of sort of trying to experience as much as I can. Because the ones that I really enjoy, sort of, they stick around. But then there's some that I'll enjoy for a while, and I'm like, okay, cool, I tried it. Like, what's next? And so I think it's sort of the way of like of almost me like filling my bucket, of getting to the point where hopefully I'm like, I wrote my book. But like, I don't know if I'll ever get there. I think time, maybe there'll be a time where I'm tired and I'm old and I'm like, I've done a lot. Because I would say if I sat there and I looked at my life, man, and I looked at the things that I've done, I think from the outside perspective looking in,
somebody would have said you've done a lot.
Yeah. Somebody would go, holy
yes.
shit, man, it's a good life. And I think sometimes like I sort of have to take that in perspective. If I wrote out a list of these things that I've gotten to experience, I've been really lucky, man. But in my mind, I have all these things that I want to do, and they're infinite. And so like I don't have an end to this like list, because those things sort of just lead to other things. Like we went skydiving, like we both loved it, and we always talk about it, like it was such a just like profound experience, I think. Like, but from that, I remember going down a rabbit hole of, I want to do this shit all the time. Like, I want to get certified, and I want to wake up and go do that. And so like I go down these rabbit holes of like, I don't know when enough is enough. Like, I don't know, and I want to experience so much. And so it's funny because when I think about like death, I go like, and I say I'm petrified of it. It's like, I'm not petrified of like the sort of the act, like how I'm gonna go or whatever. Like, that part doesn't scare me. It's the aftermath of death, of like what I'm missing out on. It's the FOMO. It's the like it's the, I guess, the feeling that I haven't written in my book. Like, yeah. So and that I haven't, and I think more so I would take it a step further and say, I want to see how the books of the people around me that I love end as well. And so I think maybe that's the answer. Selfishly, man, I've always hoped that, you know, like there's always these doomsday
that we
predictions.
all die.
Yeah, that we're all gonna die. Like Y2K in 2012. I was like,
You'd be like,
I
hey,
hope that shit's
thank
true.
God.
Yeah. Selfishly, I'd be like, yeah.
It'd be like, fucking, the prediction is Russia will nuke the planet in 2030.
I'm like, let's go. Selfishly, I'm like, bring the smoke. I'm like, I don't want you motherfuckers.
You ain't got a hair on your ass, Putin.
Bro, you know how fucked up it is that people gonna be having a good time without me? That shit drives me so I'm like, y'all still gonna be hanging out drinking this shit without me? It's fucked up. But even the idea of like, yo, there's gonna be some podcast, there's gonna be some movie, there's gonna be some like, you know, like you say, like you're talking about the kids before. Like I'm like, yo, my kids are gonna do things, you know, they're gonna have decades after me that there's gonna be this whole thing. I'm like, I want to see it. I just the idea of not being around for that is like suffocating, man. So like that when you asked me that shit, I was like, oh man, that's gonna take me down a rabbit hole, bro. Because I was like, I'm not ready, like nowhere near. And I'm like, and I don't know what the answer is to. Like, and I'm hoping that like, they're not hoping because I don't know that it'll matter, but I'm guessing that the older I get, sort of the more accepting I'll become. And this is why I sort of also have an envy to like religious people. Like I'm not religious at all, but I think there's a certain comfort that comes with death to religious. Like none of them are dying to die. Like they're not like sort of in a rush to die
for the next thing.
But they're, you know, like the thought of it being a new beginning instead of an end.
Right.
Sort of, I can see why people find comfort in that.
Absolutely.
And I can see why that's the premise behind most religions. So I do have an envy of those sometimes where I'm just like, fuck, man, I wish I felt that way. Like,
my next life is on Mars.
Let's fucking go, bro. Now that we're talking about this shit, bro, and we're hour 15 in, so like I'll try to not spend too much time on it, but they've recently have figured out a way to reverse aging in mice. And these Harvard scientists, they successfully reversed the aging process in mice by making like these DNA repairs. Okay. And so they were able to restore things like sights, like their attention span, the skin tissue
so you could
changes.
Reverse shit like dementia and shit like that, right?
So they were able to sort of reverse the aging process in these mice. And so they're moving on to like human trials next and like bigger mammals other than mice. But the trial on the mice have been super successful. So the next phase is they're going to start trying larger mammals and then eventually humans. But they essentially think that they can just slow down your aging process. Now, whether that means that you are that on a cellular level, I don't know how far that goes.
That's the thing,
or
right? So typically, for the aging process is like your cells stop regenerating.
Yeah, what's that, like mitochondria? What's the?
I don't know what the fuck it's called.
I don't know what that shit is.
But your cells stop regenerating, so sort of stop recreating themselves.
Yep.
And then if you do that if you think about your organs, right? Like after a while, like if you stop regenerating new cells for your organs fail, and then you die.
Yeah.
So if they could they found a way to.
They've been able to sort of regenerate that.
Just regenerate, like kind of keep
reverse
the machine
so
going.
you can get old, and then they're just going, no, we're going to revert back. Like you're going to start gaining your eyesight back. Your skin, your wrinkles, they can make it go away. They can sort of repair those cells. Bro. Dude, you go, okay, so 20 years from now, your humans are doing that. It's widely available. So does that mean I'm 100 and I just look younger? Or does that mean I'm 100 and my parts are younger and therefore I last longer and maybe I live to 150, like, or 130 or 140? Like, does that... You know, in our lifetime, I think we're going to find this out, like barring disease, you figure, and even then, like we're curing a lot of this stuff. It's like maybe living, 110, 120.
There's a lady right now in I want to say in Italy. Mm-hmm. Don't quote me on that. 115. So
is she now the oldest? Because I know the oldest person in the world just died recently. Yeah, yes.
And so that's the thing. So like I go, if people are living, and obviously it's a vast minority that are living to that age, but we've already shown that it's possible with medicine and technology. Like if you go 115 is the norm.
Yeah, and the quality of life is good, right? Like, do you start to deteriorate at 100? It's like, fucking A, I'll take that.
Yeah,
like,
absolutely.
Yeah. You go, okay, at that level, I've got 70 years to go. Like, it's like, okay, cool. Like, that's, yeah. I mean, and I'm one of those people who roots for that kind of shit. I always say, like, figure that shit out because I want to live to see as much as I possibly can.
Dude, I had a family member that died probably about 3-4 years ago, and I remember telling her son, who is in his like 70s, and I was like, man, like it's so sad in one respect that your mom died, but for you, like you have 20 years left. Like, yo, what are you doing with 20 years, bro? That's a fucking lifetime for some people.
Yeah, and you also, fuck, man.
You know what I mean?
It is.
So, like, to be able to look at people of that age, and especially if the people in your family that are living, that are living these long lives into their 90s and even, close to 100, is shit. If you're 70, you're going, fuck, I got 20 years left. Let's go.
Let's go. Dude, if you think about 20 years ago where you were today, like I think about where I was 20 years ago, I was in high school, and how significantly life has changed since then. And I think about all the events that have happened, and it feels like, when you think about it, it's like, oh man, it's been 20 years already, but at the same time, if I break it down into like eras of my life, a lot has happened. And it's just like one of those reminders that so much changes.
Yeah. It goes by quickly, but a lot has happened if you really break down the 20 years.
It does, man. Because you think about 5 years ago, how much things have changed since then. And especially when you're talking about like younger, like your kids. Like you think about your kids 5 years ago versus your kids now. Like it blows my mind. Like when I look at my daughter, it's insane. Like I was telling you earlier, like I had a conversation with my daughter on the way to school this morning. And I was just like, she walked out and I was like, holy fuck, like, the fact that I'm having these conversations with like
just had an adult conversation with my child,
an adult intelligent conversation. I had to like like I found myself like thinking and then trying to be thoughtful about the answer and then going like, man, is this going to be one of those conversations that she's going to remember me by for better or worse? Like, my dad was fucking nut, like he thought this, or my dad always said this. You always think of people who be like, oh, my dad always told me that, blah blah blah, and they have these life lessons, and you just go, what's that going to be to my kids? Like I don't know, and I never sort of set out with this intention of it being that way, because I don't think you can plan that. I think you just never know what's gonna stick. And so I always wonder, like, okay, what's gonna be the thing they're gonna know me by? Like what's gonna be the thing that years from now they're gonna go, I learned this from my dad, or for better or worse. Like, my dad did this, so fuck, I'm staying away. You know what I mean? Like it's just that stuff. So yeah,
that's awesome, man.
What a life, man.
On that, man, tell them where they can find us.
If you're not already following us at the Carbon Football Podcast on IG, the Carbon Football Podcast on YouTube, at Carbon FP Pod on Twitter, the Carbon FP on TikTok, and then anywhere where you listen to music in your podcast, man. So Amazon Music, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, Spotify, TuneIn, Geo7, Ghana, Podchaser, Pocket Cast, all of it, man. Go on there. There's nothing that we are not on at this point in time, and we keep adding platforms as often as we can when they're available to add on. So I think right now we've maxed out the ones we can.
Exactly.
so hop on there, hit us with some drinks, hit us with a review, let us know what you guys think, man. Thank you guys for the continued support and the texts and the drop-ins and the DMs and whatever. Like I just talked to, not to extend it longer, but I just talked to so I had a great weekend, man, with some family, and we had like a guys hang that we hadn't done in a long time. It was so I needed that, I think, more than I knew at the time. And my cousin mentioned something that we talked about on the pod, like maybe like an episode 2 before, and I didn't even realize he still listened. That was cool to have that conversation, man. So shout out to you guys, man. Thank you guys for supporting, man. I forget that people actually listen.
Yeah, right. Yo, and I read an article this week where it was talking about the drop in the number of podcasts that were started in 2022. And so, yo, man, shout out to us, bro, for fucking staying the course.
Oh yeah,
episode 130. But it could not be, it would not be what it is without you guys listening. And let me tell you, just the whether it's Instagram post or response or a text message, like all of that shit matters. And like Juan just said, just knowing that you guys are listening, it's fuel.
It is, man.
It is really, it's fuel for us to kind of keep going and keep doing this and keep researching and planning and all the things that we do is to kind of make this podcast. So we really appreciate you guys. And we will see you next week.
See you next week.
Peace.
Peace.